Good to see you all.
Yeah.
What else?
Preeti,
Yeah,
you can start.
okay. So
You are taking care of the
today's
recording.
Nish?
Are you doing the recording as a backup? Just to
Yeah, yeah.
local
Yes,
recording.
yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Close. Hey, make me host, Ratnesh. Take. Yeah.
okay, so the peoples of India or the whole world. So we are here today again live for Jatre, Aarohi Jaatre, in which today we have Shobita with us. Shobita is a writer, a publisher, a discoverer of life. So all her layers will be unfolded in just a few minutes to go. So let's give it to Shobita and let's start with her. So Shobita, just for your clarification, the flow could be means you can share your life journey. You can share the main means points, highlights of your journey, and then maybe people can ask questions. So while you were sharing your journey in say initially 20 minutes or 25 minutes, that time if people have any questions, then they can put it up in chat then later on they can come on mic and speak it up. Yeah, good to go. Chalo, let's start. You're on mute, Shobita.
Hi, everybody. I'm Shobita. And as Preeti said, I've done this and that and that and that. And I kept like changing my whatever I wanted to do based on, I wouldn't say whim of the moment, but more like a deep calling that would happen. So when I was in school, my mom was working, and I would see all these other kids with their moms making hot lunch and feeding them and all. So I said, okay, I'm going to be a mother because that's what I wanted to do because that was something I didn't have in that moment. So I decided I'll be a mother. And then when I had like a lot of problems and I didn't have anyone to go to, I decided to become a child psychiatrist. So I said I'll be there for children who want to come and talk. And so I took psychology. I joined this home science college because it had psychology. And as I was studying psychology, I found that it was not answering the questions I had. Like, how do I manage my anger? How do I stay happy? How do I be calm? So I was still left feeling empty, even though I was studying what Skinner had done in his experiments with mice and what behavioral psychologists were studying. But somehow it didn't apply much to me. So, and through all this, I was also a dancer, I was a classical dancer. So there was a lot of um, philosophical exposure through dance that I had got, and that kind of got me curious because they seem to be talking about something else. And through martial arts, I took up martial arts. I found that there were moments of this complete connection through dance and martial arts. So again, we were also introduced very briefly to meditation. So after we would finish all our martial arts, we would sit and for a few minutes we would have to like focus on our breath. I think that was my first introduction to meditation. Then I went on to jobs. I went on to doing an MBA. I did. So, but throughout it was like, okay, what will make me happy? And you think, okay, this job will make me happy. Then you realize, okay, something is still lacking. And then you say, okay, MBA ke baad, it's going to get better. Then I took up another job after an MBA. And then I said, you know what? I have to work many years to become a CEO. Why don't I become a CEO directly? So I said, I'll start my own business. I'll be the CEO directly of my own company and I'll do everything. So I started business and did quite well. But it was a lot of pressure also, like, constantly, like if my phone would ring, I would literally like cringe because I know there's some customer waiting and, waiting to harass me. So then I said, okay, this doesn't seem so fulfilling. It's good. You're your own boss. You just work for a couple of hours. The money is coming in. Everything sounds good. But maybe like a slower business will be a better option. So I moved into a slower business. And then it was like, oh, you know what? The environment is getting impacted by what you do. So something is still again missing here. So then I said, okay, let me move to barren land and rejuvenate the land and set up a community with my husband and, things like that. So, but yet something still seemed to be missing. So for me, the entire thing was, okay, what is this missing piece that I'm not able to figure out? And why does it exist? No matter what relationships, no matter what job, no matter how fulfilled you are with everything, there seems to be some feeling of lack or incompleteness or emptiness or a restlessness that you can't really pinpoint and say, where is this stemming from, right? And the nature of the mind is that no matter what you sort out, it'll put the next problem and say, think about this, now worry about this. What about this? Here you have problems with this person. So in pursuit of that, I started really exploring philosophy, meditation, and all that. And then eventually I found like a lot of my answers. So came to a sense of feeling complete. So then I started this, a few sharings, because people would talk about different problems and they would keep calling randomly. But the whole idea was to just empower people with their own tools so they can figure it out on their own. So that's where I am at. So this is like, of course, a bit of adventure sports, so trekking, cycling, and all kinds of things. And through all this, I had a lot of fears as a child. So I had to like really figure out how to get rid of my fears, because I found that imprisoned me quite a bit. So a lot of my adventure happened because I wanted to get out of my fears. So that's briefly a background. So I'm done. I can go now.
Shobita, a little about your writing stint.
Oh yeah, the writing also. Yeah, that happened in between. So I had a dream. So I had these very, very vivid dreams, and I had this dream in which there was this book complete with the cover page and the illustrations and the storyline and everything, and I was holding it and I had authored it. And I woke up and I'm like, no, not me. I'm not a writer. So one of the things I realized is that we give a lot of labels to ourselves, and it needn't necessarily be just a positive label. It can also be a label of I'm not this or I'm not that. So I think my challenge was getting out of the I am not this label I'd given myself. And I'd written this book and I just parked it. And then I remember Aditi asking me, so Shobita, why haven't you published it yet? And I was like, I haven't published it yet because, and then I had no answer. And that kind of like, I think Aditi's question pushed me into really putting it out, because then I started like looking up this thing called an imposter syndrome, because a lot of times we don't put ourselves out there because we feel we are not good enough to do something, or we are not there yet, or we are always putting these brakes on ourselves. So I had to like fight that imposter syndrome within me, which said, okay, you're not a writer, and publish the book just to like put it out and say, okay. And I even created an email ID which said author Shobita, which was very cringe for me, but I just did it because I wanted to like more like just put myself out there and say, okay, I'm an author now, more like breaking my own mental block than really about writing and publishing as such. But yeah, so The Quest of Ruby was a book I published. After I published it, I was still unhappy. So I took the help of Chitra from Aarohi, got it edited, and now the edited version is lying on my laptop. Yeah, so and there are a few more books that I've written, and now we're writing a book on the journey into self, the program that I do. So that's going to be like a book with like case studies of people who've gone through the course and things like that.
How easy or difficult was it to publish a book for you?
See, the publishing part is easy because you just have to figure out stepwise, right? Okay, with this, after this, after this, there are 100 courses available. There's a lot of information available. The bigger challenging is getting out of your own limitations, which you have imposed on yourself. So I think that was a bigger challenge, and overcoming that was a lot of fun. So, yeah. I heard a lot of people writing and publishing in Aarohi, and it makes me so happy to hear that.
Yeah, that's what I like for all the writers and for everybody. Now the floor is open. We all can ask questions from Shobita. So she's multifaceted. So you all can ask questions from any field, any walk of life.
Can you talk a little more about your fears?
About
Working on
fears?
your fear?
Yeah. So as a kid, because I was into dance, I was brought up with this whole, sense of don't do this, you'll fall, don't run fast. Because every time there would be a dance program and you can't enjoy yourself, you can't have like scars on your face and go perform Bharatanatyam. So constantly it would be like, be careful, be careful. So because of that, I had a lot of fears. I wouldn't jump from a height. I wouldn't run fast. I wouldn't sit on a slide and slide down. I wouldn't do a number of things. So uh, my brother got bitten by a dog. So I was scared of that. I was scared of doctors. I was scared of injections. I was scared of like almost everything. Water. I was scared of water because my father had once like got me to put my head into the water. He just held my head and put it in. So I had a lot of fears. So what I did one day is I just decided I'm not going to be imprisoned by my fears. I made a list of all the fears I had. So, for example, with swimming, I joined a course thinking that if I learn swimming, I'll get over my fear of water. And there the coach threatened to push me into the water. So I left because it made me very uncomfortable. So I gave myself 2 years time to learn swimming. So every day I would just go and sit in the swimming pool. And I did that for 6 months. 6 months, I would just go sit in the water, familiarize myself with water, put my head into the water, stay underwater for a few seconds, learn how to float, how to come up. So gradually I taught myself to swim. So the thing is, with fears, what I realized is you have to give it enough time and you have to allow yourself that, and familiarize yourself. So some people can just take it head on. Some fears you might be able to take it head on. So my fear of heights, I just went and did this parasailing. So I had to jump off a mountain in tandem. So I would pick up things that would really put me into a challenging place where I can't wiggle out of. And claustrophobia, I got out by getting into these caves and those narrow passages where you have to crawl through and allowing myself to be stuck in places from which I can't get out of. So yeah, that's briefly on my journey with fears. Yeah, someone asked which business. So I was into corporate gifting business. So with corporate gifting, it's usually campaign bound. So the organizations would have like this campaign that they would have to do. So everything would have to be like with a sense of urgency. The campaign would be the next day. So we had to get the T-shirts printed, or we'd have to come up with new product ideas and get everything done. Sometimes the printers would make spelling mistakes. So the T-shirts have gone with like the wrong company name. So the customers like crazy, angry at you, and there's no enough time to redo something. A lot of our suppliers were in Dharavi. So the boys who used to work for me, they've seen someone's hand get chopped off in Dharavi once they were out for like taking this dispatch. There were times when our customers' delivery would be like, so urgent that people would be taking a vehicle and driving down to Goa. And this was in my 20s. When I was in my 20s, I was doing this. And at that point, we had reached like a turnover of like 85 lakhs, which was quite good, seeing that it was almost 25, 30 years back. Yes, 25 years back. So it was quite an interesting thing. And then I had a apparel brand in Bangalore called Inspira, and we did fashion shows. So I hate dressing up. I hate like shopping and all that. So I got into something that makes me very uncomfortable, the fashion business, because I really wanted to get rid of all my judgment of people who dressed up and looked pretty and wore matching shoes and matching bags. So I did all that for a bit of time. So I would walk around in these heels and, be something just was not. So I did things that made me uncomfortable because I wanted to break out of any kind of limitation or setting on myself. But it was a lot of fun. We would, we did some crazy things in the business also. We really had fun doing everything that we did. So, yeah.
How often did you shift from one stream to another stream?
Very often, very often. The moment I learned something, I was done with it. So for me, it was always about, okay, if it gets comfortable and if it gets regular, for me, it gets a bit boring. So then I want to move on to the next thing. So once I figure it out, that part is done. Then it's like something else. But actually, you make money and you get fame and all when you stick onto something long enough. You have to keep doing it over and over. But for me, the excitement was more in learning and discovering and figuring it out. So it was my own journey. I really didn't care about the external outcome of what was happening. So I think every 6 to 7 years, I was like switching things, doing something completely different. So by the time it's well established and it's really like ready to take off is when I quit it and I walk away from it.
How did the world respond to it?
Of course, they think you're crazy and something's like wrong with your beja. I was always called impulsive, irresponsible, crazy. All kinds of labels follow you when you do such things. But I have no regrets. Absolutely. I would do it exactly the same way all over again. Because the amount of learning, the amount of fun I've had in my life, I think it's just been too good. And people usually scare you saying, don't explore so much. You should have a steady job. If you don't do this, this will happen. But it's all fears. Actually, your life is always sorted. It's just that we tend to worry too much about these things. But of course, Aarohi is a different set of people. We're all like the crazy, brave lots. So I don't have to explain much to all of you. So.
Like, what do you mean by steady?
What do I mean by steady?
Like, what do you mean by like steady job? And why do people scare you? Like, technically, like you should have a steady job and.
Yeah, so you see, most people go to school because they're scared that if they don't go to school, they won't get a job. Then if they don't get a job, they'll suffer and starve. And, the mind tends to create all these stories constantly. And so most people, if you see 90% of people believe those stories completely. When the mind creates a story, they start believing it. They think that, so you'll hear often that, oh, if you don't go to school, you'll become a watchman, then you'll do this. And this is the common stories that the world puts out, right? But it is people like all of you here on this platform that call out these stories and get people to realize that it's just a story, it's not reality. And reality can be absolutely as delightful as you can make it. And so many people believe that only, like, especially a lot of people feel that only if they get to a government job where they'll be assured a pension, that their life is sorted, or, you have to take up. Luckily for me, my father didn't do any of the very conventional things. So we didn't have that kind of pressure. But still, when you're quitting a well-paying job and going into something that you're unsure of, you realize that it's not as bad, because when we see convenience, it's nice. It's nice to travel by flights, live in 5-star hotels, like, which is typical perks of a corporate job. But you also sometimes can feel a little dead. Whereas when you're challenging yourself, you're possibly, struggling to travel somewhere, but you're really, really challenging your own mental and physical limits. There is a certain part of you which really comes alive. And I think that aliveness is beautiful.
How did you overcome that fear? Like, if you don't have a nice job, you will not. This will happen.
Yeah.
Like,
So,
how did you overcome that fear?
So the fear comes up. I look at it. There are times when I back off because the fear is there. And sometimes I keep observing that fear long enough, but I also see what I'm losing out on when I don't, when I pay attention to the fear, I'm clearly losing out on a few opportunities. So when I start over a period of time realizing, oh my God, I'm so stuck here. Oh my God, I'm so stuck here. And then you're like, you know what, let's see what happens. Jo hota hai. At the most, what? This will happen. No, it's okay. So you make your peace with the worst case scenario that your mind has created. Your mind might say, oh, you'll starve and die. You say, okay, I'll starve and die. I'll figure it out. But let me do this now. I'll have to beg on the streets. Okay, I'll go beg on the streets. It's fine. But let me do this now. So you become okay with what you think is a consequence of your actions in terms of the scariest outcome. So, for example, I was very scared of the dark. And every time if I have to stay alone, all my lights have to be on. This is as a 30-year-old, not as a young kid. As a 30-year-old, I would keep all the lights on and sleep, and that too, I'm so scared to open my eyes because I don't know what's going to pop out at me. And one day I was just tired of living like that, a prisoner of these invisible ghosts that are going to attack me, and I don't even know what they're going to do. So I said, whatever happens, happens. I switched off all the lights and I sat with my eyes open and I said, whatever is there, whoever you are, come out, and whatever you want to do to me, you do. You're going to tear me apart, tear me apart. You're going to do this, you do. Whatever you want to do, you do. But I'm not going to be scared of you anymore.
The same thing my mom says, like, I have a night lamp. I'm so scared of cats. So I'm like, I have a night lamp, and I always, my head is always on the,
yeah.
My blanket is on the top of my head. I'm so scared of these ghosts. Now what will they do with me?
Yeah. And what happened when I really did that?
What?
I realized there are no ghosts.
Huh?
Yeah, nothing came at me. Nothing happened. So the whole thing about fear is, if you look at it, it suddenly starts diminishing and it becomes, so imagine there's this huge monster, okay? If you don't look at that monster, you're scared and you're hiding under your blanket and you're like, oh my God, I don't want to look at this monster. The monster grows bigger and bigger. When you actually pull your blanket down and switch off the light and say, okay, I want to see the monster, that whole monster shrinks, and it disappears. It's not there. Or it can become such a small thing that you can play with it. It becomes your toy. Because what happens is, when all these monsters are only stories in our head, but when we call it out and we say, okay, let me see you for real, we realize, there never was a monster in the first place. It was just this imagination in my own head. But do it whenever you feel ready. When you're 30 also, it's okay. You don't have to be in a hurry. But know that how many ever years you're not doing it, you're just missing out on all the opportunities of just running in the dark or doing things that is fun. Right? But it's okay. Whenever you feel ready, there will be a time when you feel ready for it. You don't have to push it before that. So I was scared of cycling. So I learned cycling in my 10th standard. And the way I would cycle is, I I wouldn't be looking at the road. I would be looking at my cousin who is holding the cycle to see if he's letting go, because I don't want him to let go of the cycle. So I'm constantly like looking at him, and the poor guy has to run with me till like I cycle. And the moment he would let go, I would fall because I'm so scared he has left me. But somehow like I got over that and I started cycling.
I think you should not be scared, because in your 10th standard you were learning cycling, but I'm learning in the age of 10.
Yeah.
The port wheel without anyone. So I think you should not have fear of it, because I looked at the road, and whenever I look at the road, I'm like, whatever happens, it happened. And I think that also that if we are looking at the road, we will be safe more than looking at the side.
Exactly. But that's what fear does. It causes problems where there were none. Right? Had I not been scared and I'd cycled, I wouldn't have fallen as much. But because I was scared, I was falling. So fear has that funny thing to it. And when we don't have a fear, it becomes obvious to us when we see a fear in someone else. We're like, what's wrong with this person? Right? Why are they so scared of this? This is not scary. But when we have that fear, it feels so real. It's like, oh my God, like obviously this is going to happen, right? So that is the nature of fear. So I told you I was scared of slides, right? I ended up in a situation where I had to slide down this huge mountain, the snow mountain. And there was no other way for me. I couldn't go back. I couldn't walk down. So I had to literally slide. And I discovered it is so much fun. So all my years, I had missed out on that fun of sliding simply because I was scared. So that is the nature of fears. It keeps you away from doing fun things. And it also keeps you prisoner. But all these prisons are only in your own mind. They don't exist really. Does it make sense?
Shobita, what's your view on the fear of future? Like fear of future, like if I'll not do my 10, 12, then what will happen? If I'll not do my degree, then what will happen? If I'll not do this, I'll not have this certificate, then what will happen?
Yeah.
Those kind of fears.
If you don't do your 10, see, if you do your 10, you have one option. You're doing your 10. If you don't do your 10, a million other options are open to you, no? So let's just think of it this way. Let's think that right now, this moment, right? This moment that we are in, let's imagine it as a dot. It is a dot in time and in space, right? If there is this dot here, from here, any direction you can move it, and think of how many infinite possibilities open up. And suppose from this dot you moved in this direction. Again, from that dot, there are infinite possibilities. So wherever you go in life, there are infinite possibilities from that point. So why worry about it? And you don't know which possibility is going to bring what. And the nature of life is such that it's going to bring you some nice things, and it's going to bring you some not so nice things. Again, the nice and not nice is only in your own head. So it really doesn't matter which path you take. And it's okay, you can do your 10th also and take up a job also. That also is okay. There's nothing wrong with that also. We don't have to fear that. Kyare baba, job karna padega. No, it's fine. Whatever it is, it's fine. And again, all future is just imaginary. How often can we predict what's going to happen? Right? Like, for example, we think, okay, the next 5 minutes we're going to be on this call. But what if suddenly an alien comes and lifts me off this chair and takes me away somewhere and I'm not here, I can't do the call, or suddenly there's a fire in the building and I have to run out, or, there's a phone call, urgent phone call that comes. So anything could happen. So that's the nature of life. So why not just respond to what happens in that point of time rather than anticipate and think of all the million possibilities and worry about it and prepare for all the million eventualities that could happen. You can be responsive instead. And you can be creative, which is even better than responsive.
So, for your writing, you say that you've published quite a few stories. So while writing, what are you thinking and how do you write? What's your planning for writing?
Okay, so each of the book I've written in a completely different style. Okay. Some books have just come to me as downloads. Like literally, I'll be sitting doing something and either a story or a poem just comes into my head. I don't know from where. And I have to run to a laptop and type it out. There are some for which I sat and I said, okay, this is going to happen and this is going to happen. Then I started learning, okay, what is the way people tell stories? Oh, there is this rule called show, don't tell. Okay, then this is how you write dialogue. Then this is how you start. This is a good beginning. So that's some stories I've written like that. Some stories I sat and made a mind map saying, okay, these are all the things I want to talk about. This is my mind map. This is how it's going to flow. And then I started with free flow writing and then editing. In the free flow writing, whatever comes. So each book has had like a very different approach. So I have explored all kinds of writing styles. All of them work.
And what's your favorite one, like which you
So
think is the best for you?
the downloads are effortless. It's so easy and you're not resisting anything. You don't. So, but for downloads to happen, your mind has to be very calm and peaceful and settled and without thought and without your own interfering outcomes. You just clear your mind and allow for possibilities. I think that's the most effortless, most beautiful with the best results, I would say. Everything else is a lot of work. But
Nice.
to be in that space is not easy. So that itself is a lot of work.
Yeah, that's true. So how are you able to manage your day? Like when you said that you're writing and then when you're doing a lot of things, or did you do everything separately? Like
Yeah, I've always, some things have been combined, some things have been separate. But what I've realized over a period of time is we have a lot of time. We have a lot of time. Even now, I hardly use like a few hours very, very constructively, I would say. And I still have like a lot of free time that I can, use well. But I also give myself a lot of leisure time and I work in bursts, I would say. And those bursts are very productive for me. So I make sure there's a lot of leisure in my day where I'm not doing anything, where I'm just sitting or I'm playing some game or I'm just chilling or having fun with my family or watching a movie.
okay.
Because then the creativity becomes easier than when you're trying to always do something constantly. So 16 hours, if you really keep your mind focused on what you have to do, you'll see that in 1 hour you can achieve a lot of things. But because our mind tends to jump from one thing to another thing, we take 4-5 hours to do that simple task because our mind is not exactly where we want it to be. So if you spend a lot of time training your mind to be where you want it to be, then you'll find that you have a lot of time with you. I'm sure you would have experienced it at different times.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, I got it. Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions anyone has? About discovering self. So you remember we did that live book program with Aarohi. And it was a lot about visioning and what you want to do. But through that program, what I realized is awareness is a lot more important than really focusing so much on what you want to do. Awareness about how you're thinking, how you're feeling, what's happening in a perception, and all kinds of things, to what are our fears, what are our desires, just to become aware. And what I found is the moment we are aware, we have a self-regulating mechanism. We tend to automatically solve our problems when we become aware of what's happening with time. So this whole course is a lot about becoming aware of what's happening within us, within our own minds. And then it is then about connecting with people, connecting with our own bodies, connecting with nature. And then we come to visioning as to what do you want to do and how you want to spend your time. So this is this program called Journey into Yourself.
Okay, I somewhere saw also there are some different chapters that you have, some awareness or something. So
Yeah.
Can you tell little more about it?
So what we do is we begin by exploring identities we hold. So if you just look at a basic question as to who am I, right? So when you ask me to introduce myself, I said, okay, I'm a dancer, I'm this, I'm that. So everything that you say that who you are is always in context to something. So it could be in context to a relationship you have. I'm the mother of 2 kids. I'm the wife of so-and-so. It could be in context to a religion. I'm a Muslim, I'm a Hindu, I'm a this. It could be in context to a geographical place. I'm an Indian, I'm not an Indian. It could be in context to the work you do. I'm an artist, I'm a designer. So everything that you think you are is always related to something else. It could either be your values, your labels, but there is a transient changing aspect to it. So there is a changing aspect to it and there is a dependent aspect to it. So it's very difficult to find that I, which is unchanging and which is independent. So that's the first thing we explore. Who really do we mean when we say I? What do you mean when you say I? What are you referring to? And it's a very, very fascinating question to really explore, because a lot of our prisons are connected to this and a lot of our sufferings are connected to this. And all the, answers kind of come from that. Because every time you think you're something, you behave in a particular way. Or you think you're not something, then you behave in a particular way. Right? Like when I'm saying, okay, I'm not a writer. Just because I think I'm not a writer, I'm limiting an entire aspect of myself, which I could have explored otherwise. So we go into detail of such topics in this course, like your labels that you've given yourself, the identities you carry, the fears you carry, the beliefs you hold, how each of these beliefs has a role, what it does to you. Right? Like even a belief like I'm not good enough can really stop you from achieving what you want to achieve or do what you want to do. So we keep exploring all these topics. And it's fun because people experiment, then they come back. Like one simple tool is today when you go back home, whoever is a family member, you suddenly start treating them like they're a stranger. And just see what changes in your entire dynamic with that person. Behave with them like you would behave with a stranger. Not like, oh, what's your name, and not that kind of thing. But if suppose they drop something on the floor, and if it was a stranger, what would you tell them? You'd possibly say, it's okay, I'll clean it up. Right? If it is your family member, you'll be like, Arey yaar, fir se gira diya, ye kya karte? So just I'm saying, just change the dynamic just imagine it's a stranger who's done that and see how you would deal with it then. Right? If it's your mother that you want to go and ask for something, you'd be like, no, I want it now. Abhi chahiye, kyun nahi de rahe ho? But if it's, say, someone you don't know that well, you'll say, can I please have this? Is it okay? The way you would behave would be completely different. So just as an experiment to see what this identity does to you, just see how your dynamics change with someone when you think of them as how you would think of a stranger. So we have these kind of small games we play through the day and we come back and we share the next day. So it's a lot of fun. We could do one round at Aarohi if you guys want.
Yeah.
So
Now you want to do? You
no,
can do
not now. It's a 15-day program. 15-day.
Oh, yeah. Hmm.
So at any
Okay.
point that you guys feel ready, like we did the live book, we could do this.
One also you said sometimes the belief is you're not good enough. What about when the belief is you're too good enough? Like too
That
good
also is
for
the
the whole
problem,
thing.
no? Yeah. So then what I do is I start finding all the evidence for the opposite. If I think I'm too good, I start spotting all the places where I'm messing up very badly, just to counterbalance the I'm too good part. You always need that balance. It's like walking a tightrope. You don't want to be on either side where you're, putting yourself down so much or you're thinking you're the king of the world. So either ways, you'll get into trouble. So just walk the tightrope.
Yeah, because we often meet people who also are like, I'm too good for the thing, something like that.
Yeah.
So how to deal with them, those kind of
Yeah.
situations.
So journey into yourself is only about your own responses. So drawing your own boundaries with them, learning to say what you want to say, without fear. It's more about that. The world can figure itself out.
Okay,
Yeah.
so people,
Yogi, please do try and let me know how it goes.
if you have more questions, we can ask with Shobita. And
So I just want to share an example that happened in one of the batches. This person used to have a tough time with his boss because his boss always kind of had his own ideas and would try to push through things, or so this person thought. So as part of this exercise, when the person went and just started relating to that person like he didn't know who this person was, their entire dynamic changed. And then the boss took care of this person when he was sick and took him to the hospital, got him treated, stayed with him as a family member. He is now due for a promotion. Everything changed. Because suddenly you see things for what they are. And even the other person was like, oh, this guy is actually listening to me now. So, the entire dynamic shifts. Could shift. I'm not saying it will shift, but you could just see what happens. Because often what starts happening is we start going by what we think the other person is rather than what the person is in that moment. So you just want to see reality as it is. So even with good enough or not good enough, you want to see reality as it is. If you're lacking some skills, work on it. If you're, if you already have the skills, then go ahead and don't allow it to stop you because you think it's not good enough. So either ways.
Shobita, I don't know whether you covered it. Bani was asking about the business, and also I don't know whether you covered your I think some fashion designing or some garments business you were in, a boutique.
Yeah. Yeah, we covered that.
Okay. Okay.
But if anyone wants a little more details about that, if anyone is interested in
Okay. I
garments,
want a little detail about like what type of fashion designing you did.
I learned textiles where I learned cutting, stitching, macrame, crochet, knitting, and tie and dye and weaving and all kinds of fun stuff. That's what I learned. And but the business that I had a complete set of tailors and embroiderers. So we did Western dresses, we did saris, we did kurtas, we did we did fun stuff. So we would just take this piece of cloth and hold it in all weird shapes and just put a stitch somewhere and it would become a dress. And it would be like a 300 rupees fabric and we'd be selling it for 6,000 because it just suddenly looked very hep, So it's just about having fun basically with stuff, right? So yeah, we would just put together things and see how it looks and just feel happy about.
Like you felt like happy by what you're doing.
Sorry?
You felt happy of what you're doing.
Yeah. The moment I stopped feeling happy, I would stop doing it. Which is why I was called crazy. I mean, not that. So when I say happiness, I don't mean in like a very like if I eat chocolate cake, yeah, I can feel happy, but I can't eat just chocolate cake, right? I might need to eat something that's good for me. So, or when I exercise, it might not make me very happy in that exact moment because it's painful, right? But I look at the more sustained happiness that comes. So often when you resist a chocolate cake, you may feel more happy than when you just give in to the temptation of eating it. So it's more about the deeper sense of happiness, which I would call bordering on joy, rather than I feel happy. So it's not like a whimsical, I feel happy, so I'll do this, right? It's not limited to that. So you have to do things that are very challenging to really discover that deeper sense of happiness. In fact, often it's when you deny yourself a few pleasures is when you find that real happiness, or you put yourself through some pain. When I say put yourself through pain, what it means is like, say, challenging your physicality. Like martial arts is one example, dance is an example. These all challenge your physicality. You have to go beyond that feeling of pain and transcend it. You can ask me about anything, like be it my job, be it the adventure stuff that we did, or the teaching. I also taught in between. I used to teach Bharatanatyam. 2 of my students have done their Arangetram. So teaching is a completely different experience altogether.
What kind of adventures you did? Well, you said parasailing. Any other?
So a bit of trekking, like Sarpas and Kedarnath, and then we've done like cycling, like from Manali to Ladakh. Like I walked quite a bit. I cycled quite a bit. We cycled from Goa to Udupi without having a support vehicle. Then we did enduro. Pune, there's this race called enduro, which is like cycling and downhill, and it's so just those kind of not real, like not Ironman kind of stuff, but yeah.
Not bungee jumping.
Bungee jumping, not yet. It's on my list, but rappelling and all those, yeah, done. While doing treks, yeah, there are times when you can just slide and fall off into a river, or after some time it gets tough. There was once when I'd gone for this Vayachai trek, and it was with a bunch of 70 people, and we just got like tired of having this chatter. So we decided to do a 2-day trek in 1 day, and we were just 3 of us. We left that camp. We told them some story about some tickets, and we left. And we had no clue. We got lost in the forest. And we could see like bear trails, and and we had no clue how to get out. And it was getting dark. And we had to trek that day for almost 20 hours before we found our bearings, and we got to this place. And when we reached the place, there were no hotel rooms. It was all packed. There's no place to stay, and it was cold and freezing. So yeah, those are all adventures that you remember when you get lost, when you kind of like have to deal with extreme weather, when it's risky, when you have to push yourself, you're tired, you can't do anymore, and you have to still walk, or you might hurt yourself and then you have to walk with your injury. But that's the fun of life.
Shobi, I also remember that you had this entire business plan for different things ready. And you just, after you got everything done, including packaging, designing everything, you got bored and you just didn't go with it. And you just kind of, dropped the idea. Like the idli batter, I remember you were telling that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
This was way before that idli batter started coming into the market. So this was almost, I think, 10 years before the idli batter hit the market. I had the idea of packaging idli batter and selling it. But yeah, there are a lot of ideas I have explored. But it's more about the exploration, as I said. So I'd forgotten. I was wondering which business you're talking about. And then when you said idli, like right now I'm exploring the idea of, that paddu or that guliappa, they call it. It's like those are batter made into these balls.
Yeah.
But with different kinds of fillings like broccoli and corn and cheese and palak and tomato, but having these, like the momo stalls, having these
Okay.
stalls, and you have all these different toppings in it and different combinations. So with nice coconut and groundnut chutney and coriander chutney options. That and like
fun.
Yeah. So I'm exploring that now along with this Bookaloo. So that's the weavers, working with weavers and creating a platform for designers and weavers to connect. That's the other business I'm working on right now.
You should also talk about Proto. You spoke a lot about that on our podcast. You should talk about that.
Yeah, so we set up this role model rural village on 12 acres of barren land. When we bought it, it was barren. So we set up this sustainable community on that. My husband's dream, but we moved from Bangalore, sold all our possessions there and got rid of most of it and moved to barren land with 2 kids, took them out of school. And yeah, it was a big unschooling, minimalistic living, connecting with nature, slowing down, everything put together in like one basket. And that actually was like, the whole identities thing came up with that, because it really was a lot of time to explore who you really are and beyond all the other things that you do or don't do. So yeah, that's another fun part that and a lot of fun stories again there. So a lot of exciting stuff that happened in those 12 years of living on that land. And now I have moved back to Bangalore because our kids decided to go to a school. So but anything in particular you want me to talk about that, I can.
I think what would be value is the transition. How did you transition being in a city life to that, and how you had to move and give up everything that you owned? So I think that would be particularly interesting.
Yeah, so as a businesswoman, there was a sense of power that I had, in the sense of there are people who are there to listen to you. You have like a cook, you've got 20 people who are employed, and you give orders and they're following things, and you have a set of friends, you're doing all these treks and activities, and there's these places you go to, and there is a certain kind of life. Moving to barren land, suddenly I was cut off from everything familiar. The language also was not known to me. And I didn't have a single skill that was of any use to anybody. All my MBA, all this business, and all this nonsense that I'd kind of carved for myself suddenly just fell apart. And I didn't know how to light a fire. I didn't know how to identify a seed. I didn't know how to dig a hole in the ground. I didn't know how to manage the heat. I was so used to ACs, living in, an AC shop, moving back home, being under the fan. I was not even exposed to the outdoors. I didn't even know that the sun moves when it's like rising and setting. I didn't know that rains are needed and how much amount of rain is needed for a crop. Nothing, like my zero knowledge. So it's so humbling, because you realize all the knowledge that you accumulate is actually so superficial, because it is again contextual. And we are so busy amassing knowledge and thinking that we know something. But actually, in reality, it's just humbling to know that we know nothing about anything. What we know is a fraction of what we don't know, like a minuscule fraction. And I remember particularly once I was feeling so useless, I just decided to harvest some horse gram, and I went around collecting horse gram. And after like an hour, I had hardly a handful of horse gram in my hand. And I used to go to a shop and buy like a kg without even seeing the price, without even knowing. Even if a few fall, it really doesn't matter. But when a few of these horse gram that I had collected fell down, it really hurt. And the idea that after 1 hour, this is all I could do, and what did it even mean? Because you see this entire vast field in front of you with like thousands of plants, and all you have managed to is pick a little of it. And you realize that whatever you're doing is just so insignificant in the larger scheme of things. And yet it is significant in its own way. So again, as a paradox, but it was a very, very humbling exercise. I kind of broke down at that point because I just felt so useless. In spite of all these other achievements, so-called other achievements, right, of whatever it is, I've done like hundreds of programs in India, abroad dance programs. I've done quite well in school. And in spite of all this, then what does it even mean in that moment? It means nothing, all your past achievements. So every moment is very, very fresh. In that moment, it is what it is. You don't carry any past achievements. You don't carry any past failures also into that moment. So we are born every moment in that sense. So that was a deep realization for me at that point. It's difficult to explain in words exactly what shifts, but I'm just trying my best to explain it.
Like you said, you were like you had zero knowledge of of many things, of like sorry, like you had many, like you had a knowledge that you had zero knowledge of that the sun moves, and but why didn't you think of that, that you had zero knowledge? Just asking.
Because I found that I had a lot of time and there's nothing I could do with my time. I was so used to being busy that suddenly I wanted to do something. But to do something, you should know something.
Yeah.
So I didn't know anything and I couldn't do anything with my time. So suddenly I had like this lots of time and I find that there's nothing I could do because we didn't have electricity. So I didn't have access to like a computer or the familiar things that I could busy myself with. I didn't know the language. So I was not relevant anymore. And that feeling of not being relevant or not being useful,
It's like you don't exist anymore, right?
it's like you don't exist anymore. Exactly. Right? Because
Yeah.
we exist because we are either thinking something or we are doing something. So who are you without any of these things? And that is what that identity means. So it's literally like dying in that moment because everything that you think you are, you realize you're not that. Then what remains, right? But I love the way you articulated it. I've never been able to articulate in such a beautiful manner. Thank you. Yeah, it's exactly that. It's like you don't exist. And it's very difficult to deal with the idea that you don't exist.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but to do things without having that need to exist is a beautiful shift.
Mm.
You're very wise for your age. You sound very young. I'm assuming you're very young. I can't see you, but
It's only 10.
oh my God. Yeah, you mentioned 10. See how I forgot. But yeah.
Like, as people call you crazy, I thought like when you said you don't know about many things and you don't know the sun moved and all, I thought you were first time I thought, yeah, you're crazy. But then I saw like, then I think, yeah, you're little crazy, little, not so much. Then thought, like more intelligent, more crazy.
See, all these are anyways just labels, right? At times we are intelligent, at times we are crazy, at times we are wise, at times we are foolish, at times we are generous, at times we are stingy. And all these belong to us. Like night follows day.
Yeah.
And day follows night.
Exactly. So sometimes we are this, sometimes we are that.
Like sometimes I think that even I'm crazy because like most of the time my mom says like you don't know this and you don't know that, but she says that you have to know what you're doing, not like you have to like laze around or something.
So any other questions? Or any thoughts also? It needn't be a question. It can just be what thoughts come up for you.
think the thought that learning is something to do.
Sorry?
The thought is that you should do something to know it. Like
There's
for
so much to know, right, in the world. How will you finish learning everything there is to be known?
yeah, nice question.
Just with dance, Bharatanatyam, it takes us 7 years just to do an Arangetram. And that is the beginning of the journey. And I've been dancing since I was a child. And what I know about dance is like this much.
How much?
This tiny bit that you see in the pinch of my, that much.
Like I only know this much of dance. Like this much.
Yeah.
Zero. I don't dance and I'm not interested in dancing. I'm like Bharatanatyam and I'm like this much. This much of that.
See, when you start getting into deeper, you start understanding the music, you start understanding all the different people who have composed, or this endless. You can keep on learning your whole life, and then you realize that there's still so much more to learn.
Hmm.
And that's true of almost everything, right?
Yeah.
So what we are, so I don't know, maybe we have to just find one way of knowing everything there is to be known. Maybe there's a way to do that.
Maybe we should first try what we don't know. Then we should know what we are and all.
I don't know. I don't have the answers, but I'm sure there's some magical technique that exists to know everything there is to be known. But yeah, we'll explore it. So if you're all done with your questions, we can end the session.
Yes, thank you, Shobita. It was awesome. Like quite quite detailed, and you clearly showed that you can do multiple things and you're not gonna suffer and starve. So yes, thank you.
Thank you.
I will take my leave. I'm outside. So bye.
Bye.
I am
Thank you, Shobita. I like the shift of non-existence to existence. It was really nice. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Bye.
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 Thank you. Bye.
Bye.